Let me tell you something that's going to completely change how you see yourself. That smile she gave you, the younger woman across the room, the one at the coffee shop, the colleague who lights up slightly when you walk in. You probably told yourself it meant nothing. You probably filed it under politeness or coincidence or that quiet, painful category older men develop over time called, "That's not for me anymore." But here's what I need you to hear today. You were wrong, not about everything, but about this. Because what she's responding to when she smiles at you has almost nothing to do with what you think it does, and everything to do with something you've been building for decades without even realizing it had value. Stay with me, because what we're unpacking today might quietly give something back to you that life slowly took away. Here's the invisible wound that so many older men carry. At some point, gradually, without a single definitive moment you can point to, you started editing yourself out of certain rooms. You stopped assuming that attractive younger women were smiling at you and started assuming they were smiling past you. You developed this background hum of invisibility that you never asked for and never quite accepted but learned to live with anyway. You look in the mirror and you see the years, the gray, the lines, the body that tells a different story than it did at 30. And somewhere along the way, you absorbed a message that culture repeats constantly and quietly, that desire and desirability belong to the young, that after a certain age, you become scenery rather than someone worth noticing. That message is not just incomplete, it's factually, psychologically wrong. And today, we're going to dismantle it, piece by piece. Here's the first thing you need to understand, and it's the foundation of everything else. Younger women, particularly those in their mid-20s to mid-30s, are navigating a world of men their own age who are still becoming, still figuring out who they are, still performing versions of themselves, still reacting instead of responding, still trying to establish dominance in social situations because they haven't yet found their own internal ground to stand on. And then you walk in, you're not performing, you're not scanning the room to figure out where you rank, you're not talking too loud or laughing too hard or trying to impress anyone. You simply exist in the space with a quality of settledness that is genuinely rare, and that settledness registers in her nervous system as something safe, something real, something she doesn't have a complete word for yet, but responds to immediately. That smile. It's her nervous system recognizing something it's been looking for without fully knowing what to call it. There is a quality that only comes from living through things, from losing something and rebuilding, from being wrong about something important and having the humility to change, from surviving seasons of life that tested everything you thought you knew about yourself. Psychologists sometimes call it earned security, an attachment style that develops in people who have done genuine inner work and come through difficulty with their sense of self intact. It shows up as a particular kind of calm, an unrushed quality, a way of being present in a conversation that makes the other person feel like the most important thing in the room. You cannot manufacture this quality. You cannot perform it. It either lives in you, built through actual experience, or it doesn't. Younger women feel it immediately. They may not be able to name it. They might just say, "There's something about him," and not be able to articulate further. But what they're responding to is you, the version of you that only existed because of everything you've been through. The gray in your hair is not a liability, it's evidence. Let me ask you something. When was the last time someone, a younger person, a new acquaintance, anyone, talked to you and felt like you were actually listening, not waiting for your turn, not steering toward your own story, not half present while composing your response? Older men who have done any kind of inner growth tend to develop the capacity for genuine listening because life has taught them that most of what they used to think was urgent, most of the noise, the ego, the need to be right, wasn't actually important. And when that realization settles in, it frees up a tremendous amount of space for other people. When a younger woman talks to a man who genuinely listens, who asks real follow-up questions, who remembers what she said, who doesn't immediately redirect to himself, the experience is so different from her daily norm that it creates an almost disorienting warmth. That warmth shows up on her face as a smile. Not politeness, recognition, the recognition of being actually, genuinely seen, possibly for the first time in a long time. Here's one of the most counterintuitive truths in all of attraction psychology: neediness, the anxious, approval seeking energy that makes someone constantly check whether you like them, constantly seek reassurance, constantly adjust themselves to whatever they think you want, is one of the most universally unattractive qualities a human being can project. And younger men, through no fault of their own, often radiate it because they're still building their sense of self from the outside in. But you, at this point in your life, you've largely stopped needing external approval to feel okay about who you are. You've been through enough to know that other people's opinions of you, even the opinions of people you find attractive, don't determine your value. You know who you are. You know what you've built. You know what you stand for. That self containment is magnetic in ways that are almost impossible to overstate. When you speak to a younger woman without needing her to respond a certain way, without that anxious undercurrent of please like me, please approve of me, she feels the difference in her body. It creates a pull toward you that she might not even be fully conscious of. You stopped needing her approval, and that is precisely why you have it. We talk a lot in pop culture about what women say they want, but evolutionary psychology and decades of relationship research point to something deeper, something that operates below conscious preference lists and stated priorities. The nervous system, in women especially, is wired to respond to signals of stability, not just financial stability, though that's part of it, but emotional stability, predictability in the best sense, the sense that this person will not suddenly change on you, will not erupt without warning, will not disappear when things get hard. An older man who has lived with integrity, who has relationships in his life that have lasted, who has navigated difficulty without completely falling apart, who carries himself with the quiet confidence of someone who has proven something to himself over time, broadcasts those stability signals constantly without trying. She picks them up. Her nervous system relaxes slightly in your presence in a way it maybe doesn't with men her own age. And that relaxation, that felt sense of safety, often shows up as warmth, as openness, as a smile that carries more in it than social politeness. Here's something that doesn't get said enough. A lot of younger people, particularly younger women, carry a quiet anxiety about aging, about whether life gets smaller as the years go on, whether the best parts are already happening or still ahead, whether the energy and possibility they feel right now is something they'll slowly lose. And then they meet an older man who completely dismantles that anxiety without saying a word about it. Because you show them, just by existing fully, engaging warmly, carrying yourself with aliveness and humor and genuine interest in the world, that life at your age is not a diminished thing. It is a deepened thing. That there is a version of being alive at 50 or 60 or beyond that is richer and more authentically inhabited than anything available at 25. That is genuinely hopeful, and hope is one of the most quietly attractive things one person can offer another. Her smile in those moments is not about you specifically, it's about what you represent, a future that doesn't have to be feared. And somehow, in being that living proof, you become deeply worth smiling at. Here's where I want to be honest with you, because this matters. A lot of older men receive these smiles, this warmth, this openness, and immediately discount it. They tell themselves the story we talked about at the beginning. She's just being polite. She smiles at everyone. That's definitely not for me. And in doing so, they make themselves smaller than the moment requires. Or they go the other direction. They notice the attention and immediately become self-conscious about the age gap, the gray hair, the years between them. They start apologizing with their body language and their energy for simply existing in the space. Both of these responses communicate the same thing. I don't believe I deserve this. And that disbelief, that self erasure, is the only thing that can actually undermine everything we've talked about because it replaces the earned calm and genuine settledness with something that looks to her perceptive nervous system like insecurity. The move, the one that honors everything you've built, is to simply receive the warmth, to smile back, to engage with the full grounded presence of a man who knows his own worth. Not arrogantly, not performatively, just honestly. That's it. That's the whole instruction. Let me close the development section with this, because it's the most important thing. Attraction, at its deepest level, is not primarily about physical youth. It is about vitality, about aliveness, about the quality of presence a person brings into a room and into a conversation. Vitality does not have an expiration date. It is not something you lose when your hair goes gray or your face carries more history. It is something you either cultivate or abandon at any age in either direction. The older men who remain genuinely attractive, not just to younger women, but to anyone worth being attracted to, are the ones who stayed alive inside their own lives, who kept being curious, who kept growing, who refused the slow death of bitterness or resignation that claims so many people in midlife and beyond. You have a choice every single day about which kind of older man you are becoming. Here's what I want you to carry out of this conversation today. That smile, whoever gave it to you, wherever you saw it, whatever you told yourself it meant, was real. It was a response to something genuinely present in you, something built slowly through years of living that radiates from you now, whether you're conscious of it or not. You are not invisible. You are not past your season. You are not someone the room looks through. You are a man whose depth is finally visible, whose calm is finally earned, whose presence finally carries the weight of a life genuinely lived. The only question worth asking now is whether you're going to believe that and start showing up accordingly, not for her, for yourself first. Because the man who knows his own worth doesn't need to chase anything. He simply lives fully, and the right things, the right people, the right smiles find their way to him naturally. You've already done the hard part. You lived through it. Now show up for what it made you. If today gave you something, a shift in how you see yourself, a framework that felt true in your chest, subscribe. Every week, we go this deep into psychology, attraction, and what it means to show up fully human at every stage of life. Honest conversations, real insights, no filters. I'll see you in the next one. You're more compelling than you know.